What's going on, everybody? So it's late, and for whatever reason, I can't sleep. I thought I'd just hop on line and basically make a video. And the person that comes to mind is Cuban Gooden Jr., right? So this is a TMZ video, and I actually can't play it because I'll get a copyright violation. But I thought I'd make a video and talk about the strategy for Cuban Gooden Jr., or maybe I'll call this Cuban Gooden Jr.'s best move, right? So, I mean, it's no secret. Basically, everyone that has come up against the Me Too movement thus far has lost, right? The Me Too movement has a really good winning streak, right? So they got Bill Cosby, they got Larry Nassar, they got who else did they get? They got Weinstein or Weinstein or whatever his name is. So they have a solid winning streak. So one of the other people that's up against them is Cuban Gooding Jr. Of course, there's R. Kelly, but we won't talk about R. Kelly right now. So we need to look at Cuban Gooding Jr. and what this is possibly going to mean for Cuban Gooding Jr. Me personally, I think that Cuban Gooden Jr. needs to make some very, very tough decisions, right? If he makes some very, very tough decisions now, he could possibly come out ahead a little bit, right? There's no good ending for Cuban Gooden Jr. And here's why. So there's multiple videos of Cuban Gooden Jr. being alleged of actually touching women without their consent. Now I saw the first video, and it's a video where he's in a bar with his girlfriend, and the strange woman comes along. And to me, it looks like there's a lot of consensual touching in that video. But then you see this video, right? You see this video, and I wish I could play it, but TMZ owns the rights, and if I play it, I'm going to get a copyright violation. So, I can't play it. So, but basically what happens is Cuban Gooden Jr. walks by this lady and he touches her. She gets pissed off and she's like, don't be touching me or whatever she says. He then gets offended and he's like, well, who the, heck are you? I can touch you if I want to. And this is what you're seeing now. He's already been told not to touch her. She basically tells him to stop. He decides to go and touch her anyway, just because he can. And who is she to tell him not to touch her, right? So he goes and he touches her. Then what happens is that it escalates and it gets to the point where everybody basically has to get involved to keep this thing from getting out of hand. So if you look at the emotions, not the emotions, but if you look at the people in the room, you can see that, he at this point, it looks like it's for him, it looks like it's a little funny, right? And you see these two guys, they're looking around like, what the heck is going on? And you see this guy, he's paying attention as well, right? So, and this is a little unfair because I basically paused the video so you can't get the full picture here. But all you have to do is go and Google this, and you Google Cuban Gooden Jr. and touching, and this is what you're going to find. So this thing escalates. He walks by, he touches her, and the touch, that the initial touch wasn't so bad. He probably could have got away with it, maybe. But then she gets upset and she basically says something to him, and I can only embellish. She's probably like, "Motherfucker, what you doing touching me?" Or whatever, right? So he gets pissed off and he decides to touch her again. So then it really escalates, and all these people have to jump in to break it up, right? So because of this video, and it's not really just this video, but this video is probably the worst video that I've seen so far. But because of this video and because of the alleged accusers, I think it's pretty much over for Cuba Gooden Jr., right? First off, you look at all the other people that has been convicted by the Me Too movement. Basically, they didn't even have any evidence. All they had was accusations. So when it comes down to Cuban Gooden Jr., they're going to show this video, and they're going to march 22 women in front of the jury to tell their stories of how Cuban Gooden Jr. has violated them, right? So that leaves Cuban Gooden Jr. with very few options, right? He can fight this, right? But in my opinion, trying to fight this is a loser's move. And the reason I say it's a loser's move because they already got Cosby, they've already got Weinstein, and I think Larry Nassar was pretty much guilty, so I can't really defend them. They're trying to get R. Kelly, and they're also trying to get, who is it? I want to say Ron Dempsey. They're trying to get Ron Dempsey, and they're also going to try to get Damon Dash, but Damon Dash really just has a civil suit, so we'll see how that goes, right? But in my opinion, they have a winning streak. The Me Too movement is basically putting people out of their misery. So Cuban has very, very few options. And again, these are just my opinions. I'm not a lawyer and I'm not a psychic, so I can't really tell you if this man is going to win or lose in court. But I can tell you right now, things don't look good for the home team because they have a video of you touching this woman, and the Me Too movement has already crucified men off of allegation alone, right? So he can fight this and he can go back to court and draw this out as long as he possibly think he can, right? He can do that. That's one option, right? But I don't think that's the best option, but it's one option, right? The other option is to go ahead and take a plea deal. Just go ahead and take a plea deal, and maybe you can basically choose two things. You can probably choose what prison you go to, and you can probably make some type of deal to get the least amount of time. And I think in this situation, that's a win for Cuban Gooden Jr. Now, I'm going to admit, when this story first broke and they had that first video, I was like, oh man, that's nothing. He's finna walk. He's gonna walk. But then all these other women started to come out the woodwork, and then they had this video, right? So this video again is pretty bad. In light, it's not that bad, but in light of the Me Too movement, it's pretty bad. So he's going down for sure. I think the best possible thing he can do is just to choose to be at peace. Choose to be at peace with the situation, make a plea deal, and then maybe in that plea deal you can ask for some special, you can ask for something special, like maybe you pick the prison, maybe you pick some type of work release where you can get out and you can maybe make movies or something like that. I mean, who knows what these guys will agree to. And I think so long as the Me Too movement gets a win, which they're going to get anyway, in my opinion, so long as they get a win, they may not really care that much. So maybe he can pick the prison that he goes to, and he can get some type of deal, some type of work release or something like that. Or maybe he could possibly even get the least amount of prison time as possible. And to make things more palatable, right, for the for the prosecutors and possibly for the Me Too movement, maybe he can agree to do some community service where he comes out and he talks about his problem about groping women in public, and he can talk about how it was wrong and how he was sick and how because you really can't just walk around. I don't care who you are, you can't walk around just touching people, and he really couldn't have gotten away with this if it were black women, because most black women, adult black women that I know in Chicago. You touch one of them without permission, and it's pretty much going to be hell to pay. So yeah, so you can't go around touching people. But maybe he can make some type of deal. He can get he can choose a prison. He can get work release, and in exchange, he can maybe talk about his illness, right? Because it is sick. You can't. I mean, you basically he can come out and he can talk about how wrong he was, and he can agree to maybe do tours where he goes from city to city, and he can talk about women's rights. He can talk about how men take advantage of women. Maybe there's some things that he can do. Maybe there's some things that the Me Too movement will be willing to negotiate to reduce his possible sentencing, right? So, yeah, I mean, honestly, I think it's over for Cuban Gooden Jr. And I think this is the best move. Be at peace, take a plea deal, and that's even if he has an option to plead for a plea deal. He may not even have the option. Maybe the prosecutors feel that, hey, you know what? We got you on video. We have several victims. We have over 22 victims. We're good. We don't need a plea deal. We finna send you away for as long as we possibly can. Now I don't know what the charges are. Maybe I'm not committing to this, but maybe in the next video I can actually download the indictment for Cuban Gooden Jr. and maybe I can look at the statutes for Cuban Gooden Jr. And then we can look at how much time he could possibly get, and we can maybe do a legal analysis. I'm not committing to any of that, but if you want to basically see that video, feel free to make a donation. Make a donation, and I will, download the indictment, and then I'll go into the actual statutes that he's been accused of violating, and then I also maybe do some type of legal analysis. But hey, maybe this is something that people don't want to see. So I don't really want to waste time, doing stuff that people don't want to see. So leave your questions and comments below. Let me know if you want to see a follow-up video on this. It doesn't necessarily have to be the legal analysis, but let me know if you want to hear more about Cuban Gooden Jr. Let me know if you think Cuba Gooden Jr. has a chance of coming out of this without any prison time. I personally think he doesn't. However, I have to admit, I'm definitely not a lawyer, and I'm damn sure not a psychic, so I can't tell you what's going to happen one way or the other. But if I had to put money down, if you came to me and you wanted to bet whether or not Cuban Jr. was going to go to jail, and you were talking about $100, I would put my money where my mouth is, and I would say $100 he's going to go to jail, and I can make that bet and feel pretty confident that I'm going to be $100 richer after his trial basically happens, right? So honestly, I think if he is just at peace with himself and he just accepts that this is going down one way or the other, maybe he can get a plea deal. But whether he gets a plea deal or not, I guess his only other option, so he can fight, he can make a plea deal, and failing both the first two options, he can just say, you know what, I'm going to jail, and I'm just going to make peace with the fact that I'm going to jail, and I'm going to just try to have the best prison experience that I could possibly have. Hopefully I don't get shanked. Hopefully I don't get raped. And if none of those two things happen, you're good. You're basically good. You know what I mean? Because then you can, I mean, well, it's kind of different for Cuban Gooden Jr. because I'm assuming the fact that he was an actor, that he has some type of money. But for the average Joe Blow, the average guy on the street, if he ends up in jail and he doesn't get shanked and he doesn't get raped, then he can adjust his mind to being at peace with prison. Because if you really think about it, you're getting free meals every day. You don't have to pay for housing, and basically all you have to do is just relax. You can just see it as a some type of retreat. I know that's kind of a crazy way to look at it, and I don't advocate going to prison. But honestly, if you get a prison like ASAP Rocky got, like if you can go and watch my videos about ASAP Rocky's prison term, and basically he was basically in heaven, in my opinion. It's, or at least heaven for thugs, right? If you're a thug, or if you're, and not necessarily a thug, but if you're a criminal and you get locked up in a prison like that, that's criminal's heaven, right? So you can be at peace with prison. I don't advocate going to prison, but it's a time for reflection. You can pray, you can meditate, you can think about what you've done all your life, and you can think about the consequences of your actions. So I would say yes. So the first option is to fight. I don't think it's a good option. The second option is to get a plea deal. Think about all the things that you could possibly want, which you may not be able to do, but like you can probably hire a lawyer that does criminal trials all the time, and maybe the lawyer would know what to ask for, or you can just talk to a person who's been locked up, or talk to several people who's been locked up for a really long time, and you can figure out what they would have wanted if they could do it all over again and they knew they had to do that time. What would they have asked for if they could have asked before going to prison? At any rate, he can figure out what's the best possible way to make his prison sentence more comfortable, and then he can try to make a plea deal to get that. I don't know what makes a comfortable prison sentence. If you ever been locked up, or somebody that's been locked, I know plenty of people that's been locked up, but I never really talked to them about prison. Probably for several reasons. But if you know what makes a prison sentence more comfortable, leave your comments below and let us know what would you ask for in a plea deal. But ultimately, if he can't get a plea deal, then he has to make peace with his situation. And I think if you make peace with your situation and you find the best way to pass the time, then you can basically come out ahead because you've done something productive with that time. And he's probably well off anyway. I think the worst possible thing that could happen to Cuban Gooden Jr. right now is that they lock him up and they take his money, because you know how the government, especially the federal government, they like to take your jack you for your stuff if you end up losing. They want all your money and all your property. I'm not sure how that works with state prison. Maybe they don't do that. So I think the worst thing that can happen to him is that he goes to prison and he gets wiped out financially. That's probably the worst that can happen to him. But if he just goes to prison for like, and I don't see him going to prison for a long time. I can see him getting like maybe 3 to 5 years off of this, and then with good behavior, you're probably out in like a year and a half. I don't know. I haven't looked at the actual charges and the indictment and the possible prison sentence. Let me know if you want to see that. But anyway, leave your questions, comments below. I want to hear from you. Let me know what you think. Thanks for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe.